everyone, I'm Francesca and this is Atelier Cool. So, long time no see. It has been 2 weeks since my last video and I am so sorry about that, but I was ill. I got the flu and a terrible sore throat and the cough and I couldn't speak and it was really bad. But now I'm back, and first of all I want to say a huge thank you to Elena from Elena Reads Books, who did a shout out about my channel. And welcome to all my new subscribers, because I've gained many subscribers since then, so welcome to my channel. I hope you like this video, and this is the second part of my May book haul. I have 2 plays here, and the first one is The Crucible by Arthur Miller, and this is a drama set in Salem, Massachusetts in the 17th century, where some rumors about women practicing witchcraft lead to violence, hysteria and a terrible witch hunt. And Miller uses the Salem events to criticize the anti-communist hysteria created by the US Senator McCarthy. And I've never read anything by Arthur Miller before. I just know that he was a Marilyn Monroe's husband, and he was quite a cool guy, I have to say. And but I've watched the movie adaptation with Winona Ryder and Daniel Day-Lewis, and I thought it was a wonderful movie, so I'm very curious about this one. And speaking about witchcraft, I also have here a very short introduction on witchcraft, and this is my first very short introduction book, and I think this is a very interesting concept. There are so many topics, and I wanted to read something about witchcraft, and I'll let you know about this one. The next play that I have here is Peter and Alice by John Logan, and this I wanted to read for a while. It's about a fictional encounter between Alice Liddell Hargrave, the original Alice in Wonderland, and Peter Llewellyn Davis, the original Peter Pan. They meet at a Lewis Carroll exhibition in 1932. I've heard many people raving about this book, and especially Amanda Center did a video about the play during her Wonder Week, which was the week all dedicated to Alice in Wonderland. And she said that you have to read this one with a box of tissues at hand, and I was sold by this phrase, because in my mind crying equals quality, so I can wait to cry with this one. Next I have a children's book, and it's the first book in the Books of Elsewhere series, and it is The Shadows by Jacqueline West. And this is a kind of children mystery. It's about a girl, Olive, who moves with her parents into an old Victorian mansion, and she discovers some creepy paintings through which she can travel to another world. And the premises are really interesting, and I hope to find this one very good and keep continuing on with the series. Then I have Soulless by Gail Carriger, yeah. And this is the first book in the Parasol Protectorate series, and it's about this girl, Alexia Tarabotti, who has no soul, and she lives in Victorian London, and there are werewolves and vampires involved, and these are the elements that draw me in the first place. But then I heard Liz from Now Voyaging saying that this is primarily a romance, so I'm not so sure anymore, but I'm sure I'll give it a chance. Next I have a classic, and it's On the Road by Jack Kerouac, and this I bought in the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition, and it is the original draft of the book. And I love these editions because of the paper that is roughly cutted here. I don't know if you can see, and it is more like a manuscript, and I find it really, really beautiful. This book is probably the symbol of the Beat Generation, the underground movement originated in 1950s in New York City, created by some artists and writers. And it was Jay Kerouac who created, in a way, the name Beat Generation. From the Beat Generation authors, I read only Junkie by William Burroughs, and I have to say I really enjoyed it. It is mainly about drug addiction, so it's dark and twisted, but it's very lyrical. And the main thing that I loved, it was the setting with this New York City, completely different from what we used to know. And on the road, it's the recollection of the traveling that Jack Kerouac did in North America with his friends and with his friend and muse Neil Cassidy. It is sort of a coming of age story about freedom, about self-discovering, and the writing style, it has to be the main feature of the book because it is one single spaced paragraph with very few punctuation signs, and it is very specific to that period and to the Beat Generation. I've heard many people hated this book, so I'm not sure, but being a masterpiece in American literature, I surely want to read it, and I'll let you know my thoughts. This book that I have now is very famous on BookTube, and it is The Gracekeeper by Kirsty Logan. And I've heard, the first time I've heard about this book, it was in a Jan Campbell video. Jan Campbell is always a great source for books. And Kirsty Logan, this is the Beau novel of Kirsty Logan. She has a short story collection out, The Rental Heart, I think, but I don't have that one yet. This is inspired by Scottish myths and fairy tales, and the setting is a sea world, and the main characters are two girls, one who lives on the mainland and one who lives at sea. It says here in the back, in a world that is almost entirely sea, placing your feet on land was a privilege that must be earned. So I'm very curious about this one. Everyone says that is wonderful, wonderfully written, so I can wait to. Next I have Reader, I Married Him, and this is a collection of stories all inspired by Jane Eyre, edited by Tracy Chevalier, and the stories are written by acclaimed contemporary female authors such as Tracy Chevalier, Ellen Dunmore, Emma Donoghue, Elif Shafak, Audrey Niffenegger, I don't know if I said her name correctly, but this seems to be very interesting, but I want to reread Jane Eyre first, so you'll have to wait a little bit to hear my thoughts about this. I have another short stories collection here, and it is Sweet Home by Caris Bray, and these stories take a look inside the suburban life, and all are centered around the concept of home, but treated in a dark and lyrical way. The themes are marriage, loss, childhood, parenthood, and I've heard many people saying that it's very touching and moving, and the writing is beautiful, and I'm very, very curious about it. Another book from the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. And first of all, the cover is beautiful. I love the pencil sketch, the drawings is beautiful, it's very spooky, and the black cat, and the font is my favorite because it's some kind of an old school tattoo font. So this, just for these things, it's perfect, but also the story seems to be perfect because this is about two sisters who lived entirely isolated in their estate, where all the other family members died poisoned by arsenic. And there are some horror elements in here, I think, but I don't know much more than that, and I'm really curious to start this one. I can't wait to start it because it seems very beautiful and interesting. Another booktube induced by is The Book Collector by Alice Thompson, and this is a gothic novel. It's about a woman who has the perfect life, the perfect marriage, and at one point she becomes obsessed with a fairy tale book that her husband is keeping in a safe, and she starts hallucinating and ends up in an asylum to be treated for this mental illness that she has. The premises are really good and I really want to know the character more, so I can wait to start this one as well. Next I have The Bees by Lillian Paul, and this book was shortlisted from the Bailey's Women's Prize for Fiction in 2015. And I've heard many things about this book, especially from Nicole from Dark Brain. And this book is described as the Hunger Games meet The Handmaid's Tale. So it has to be quite strange. The story is told from the perspective of a bee, Flora 717, who makes her way into the hive society. And I want to read you the back here, which with each act of bravery, her status grows, revealing both the enemies within and the sinister secrets that rule the hive. But when her instinct to serve is overwhelmed by a fierce and deeply forbidden maternal love, she breaks the most sacred law of all. So I'm really curious to read this one. I can wait to get to this one, and I have so many things to read that is very difficult to decide, but I can't do the decide in advance thing because I want the book to call me. I want to say no more about that, that just sound crazy. Okay, and finally, last but not least, I have Arcadia by Ian Pierce, and I've heard about this book in an Holly Dunn video, and she described it as Alice in Wonderland meets Murakami, and just that led me think, okay, I want this book straight away. And I don't know much about the story, except that it's a fantasy book and there are some intertwined worlds and different stories. I read you the back. In the basement of a professor's house in Oxford, 15-year-old Rosie goes in search of a missing cat and instead finds herself in a different world. And let me say, this reminds me a lot of Philip Pullman, his Dark Materials. Go on. Underworld is a sun-drenched land of storytellers, prophecies and ritual. But is this world real, and what happens if she decides to stay? Meanwhile, in a sterile laboratory, a rebellious scientist is trying to prove that time does not even exist, with potentially devastating consequences. A capture-adventure story with huge heart and dazzling imaginative power. So, this should be really good. I hope this will be really good. I want so bad to give 5 stars because right now I'm reading really good book, but not one is exceptionally good. So I'm craving for a 5-star read. So these were all the books in my haul. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and as always, let me know if you have read any of them, and let me know as well if you want me to start reading with one title over another. And thank you so much for watching, and until next time, ciao!